This is a reading of a book known as This Is Going to Hurt. It's a secret diary of a junior doctor. It's by Adam Kay. I'm starting a little mini-series of sleep stories, and I really wanted to do this because this is just something very special. And I've always wanted someone to just read me a book while I go to sleep. I think that is just very beautiful, it's very intimate and very personal. So we're going to start. Introduction. In 2010, after 6 years of training and a further 6 years on the wards, I resigned from my job as a junior doctor. My parents still haven't forgiven me. Last year, the General Medical Council wrote to me to say they were taking my name off the medical register. It wasn't exactly a huge shock, as I hadn't practiced medicine in half a decade, but I found it a big deal on an emotional level to permanently close the chapter of my life. It was, however, excellent news for my spare room, as I cleared out box after box of old paperwork, shredding files faster than Jimmy Gar's accountant. One thing I did rescue from the jaws of death was my training portfolio. All doctors are recommended to log their clinical experience in what is known as a reflective practice. On looking through this portfolio for the first time in years, my reflective practice seemed to involve going up to my hospital on-call room and writing down anything remotely interesting that had happened that day, like a medical Anne Frank, only with worse accommodation. Among the funny and the mundane, the countless objects and orifices, and the petty bureaucracies, I was reminded of the brutal hours and the colossal impact being a junior doctor had on my life. Reading back, it felt extreme and unreasonable in terms of what was expected of me, but at that time I just accepted it as part of the job. There were points where I couldn't have flinched if an entry read swam to Iceland for antenatal clinic or had to eat a helicopter today. At the same time that I was reliving all this through my diaries, junior doctors in the here and now were coming under fire from politicians. And I couldn't help but feel doctors were struggling to get their side of the story across, probably because they were at work the whole time. And it struck me that the public weren't hearing the truth about what it actually means to be a doctor. Rather than shrugging my shoulders and shredding the evidence, I decided I had to do something to redress the balance. So here they are, the diaries that I kept my time during the NHS, verrugas and all, what it's like working on the front line, repercussions in my personal life, and how one terrible day it all became too much for me. Sorry for the spoiler, but you watched Titanic knowing how that was going to play out. Along the way, I'll help you out with the medical terminology and provide a bit of context about what each job involves. And like being a junior doctor, I won't just drop you in the deep end and expect you to know exactly what you're doing. Chapter 1. House Officer. The decision to work in medicine is basically a version of the email you get in early October asking you to choose your many options for the work Christmas party. No doubt you choose a chicken to be on the safe side, and it's more than likely everything will be alright. But what if someone shares a costly factory farming video on Facebook the day before and you inadvertently witness a mass debeaking? What if Morrissey dies in November and out of respect for him you turn your back on a lifestyle that's far devoted almost exclusively to consuming meat? But what if you develop a life-threatening allergy to escalopes? Ultimately, no one knows what they'll fancy for dinner in 68 dinner times. True, every doctor makes a career choice age 16, 2 years before they're legally allowed to text a photo of their own genitals. When you sit down and pick your A-levels, you set off on a trajectory that continues until you either retire or die, and unlike your work Christmas party, Janet from procurement won't swap your chicken for the halloumi skewers. You're stuck with it. At 16, your reasons for wanting to pursue a career in medicine are generally along the lines of, my mom's or dad's a doctor, I quite like Holby City, I want to cure cancer. Reasons 1 and 2 are ludicrous, and reason 3 would be perfectly fine. If a little earnest, were it not for the fact that's what research scientists do, not doctors. Besides, holding anyone to the word of that age seems a bit unfair. On a par with declaring the I want to be an astronaut painting you did aged 5 a legal binding document. Personally, I don't remember medicine ever being an active career decision. More just the default setting for my life. the marimba ringtone, the stock photo of a mountain range as a computer background. I grew up in a Jewish family, although we were mostly in it for the food. Went to the kind of school as essentially a sausage factory designed to churn out medics, lawyers, and cabinet members, and my dad was a doctor. It was written on the walls. Because medical schools are oversubscribed tenfold, all candidates must be interviewed, with only those who perform best under a grilling being awarded a place. It's assumed all applicants are on course for straight A's at A levels, so universities base their decisions on non-academic criteria. This, of course, makes sense. A doctor must be psychologically fit for the job, able to make decisions under a terrifying amount of pressure, able to break bad news to anguished relatives, able to deal with death on a daily basis. They must have something that could not be memorized and graded. A great doctor must have a huge heart and a distended aorta through which pumps a vast lake of compassion and human kindness. At least that's what you think. In reality, medical schools don't give the shittiest shit. Oh, I said shittiest shit, it's shiny as shit. But I do agree with that sentiment as well. They don't give the shittiest shit about any of that. Don't even check you're okay with the sight of blood. Instead, they fixate on extracurricular activities. Their ideal student is captain of 2 sports teams, the country swimming champion, leader of the youth orchestra, and the editor of the school newspaper. It's basically a Miss Congeniality contest without the sash. Look at the Wikipedia entry for any famous doctor, and you'll see he proved himself an accomplished rugby player in youth leagues. He excelled as a distance runner in his final year at school, as vice captain of the athletics team. This particular description is of a certain Dr. H. Shipman, so perhaps it's not a rock-solid system. Imperial College in London were satisfied that my distinctions in grade 8 piano and saxophone, alongside some half-assed theatre reviews of the school magazine, qualified me perfectly for the life on the wards. And so in 1998, I packed my bags and embarked upon the treacherous 6-mile journey from Dulwich to South Kensington. As you might imagine, learning every single aspect of the human body's anatomy and physiology, plus each possible way it can malfunction, is a fairly gargantuan undertaking. But the buzz of knowing I was going to become a doctor one day, such a big deal you get to literally change a name, like a superhero or an international criminal, propelled me towards my goal through these 6 years. And then there I was, a junior doctor. Could have gone on mastermind with a specialist subject, the human body. Everybody at home would be yelling at their TVs if the subject I chose was too vast and wide-ranging, that I would have gone for something like atherosclerosis or bunions. But they'd have been wrong. I'd have nailed it. I agree. It's finally time to step out into the ward, armed with all this exhaustive knowledge, and turn theory into practice. My spring couldn't have been coiled any tighter. So it came as quite the blow to discover that I'd spent a quarter of my life at medical school, and it hadn't remotely prepared me for the Jekyll and Hyde existence of a house officer. During the day, the job was manageable, if mind-numbing and insanely time-consuming. You'd turn up every morning for the ward round, where you team of doctors poodles past each of your patients. You trail behind like a hypnotized duckling, your head cocked to one side in a caring manner, noting down every pronouncement from your seniors. Book an MRI, refer to rheumatology, arrange an ECG. Then you spend the rest of your working day, plus generally a further unpaid 4 hours, completing those dozens, sometimes hundreds of tasks, filling in forms, making phone calls. Essentially, you're a glorified PA. Not really what I trained to do so hard for. But whatever. Completely agree with this. The night shifts, on the other hand, made Dante look like Disney, an unrelenting nightmare that made me regret ever thinking my education was being derutilized. At night, the house officer is given a little paging device affectionately called Bleep, and responsibility for every patient in the hospital. That fucking lot of them. The nighttime SHO and the registrar would be down in A&E reviewing and admitting patients while you're up on the ward sailing the ship alone. A ship that's enormous and on fire, and then no one really taught you how to sail. You've been trained how to examine a patient's cardiovascular system, you know the physiology of the coronary vasculature, but even when you can recognize every sign and symptom of a heart attack, it's very different than actually managing one for the first time. You're bleeped by ward after ward, nurse after nurse, with Emergencies after emergency, it never stops, all night long. Your senior colleagues are seeing patients in E&E with a specific problem like pneumonia or a broken leg. Your patients are having similar emergencies, but they have hospital inpatients, meaning they already had something significantly wrong with them in the first place. It's a build your own burger of symptoms layered on conditions, layered on diseases. You see a patient with pneumonia who is admitted with liver failure, or a patient who's broken their leg falling out of bed after another epileptic fit. Your one-man mobile, essentially untrained A&E department, getting drenched in bodily fluids, not even the fun kind, reviewing an endless stream of worryingly sick patients who 12 hours earlier had an entire team of doctors caring for them. You suddenly longed for the 16-hour admin sessions, or ideally some kind of a compromised job that's neither massively beyond or beneath your skills. It's a sink or swim. You have to learn how to swim, because otherwise a ton of patients sink with you. I actually found it all perversely exhilarating. Sure, it was hard work, sure the hours were bordering on inhumane, and sure I saw things that have scarred my retinas to this day. But I was a doctor now.